We've got breaking news coming from the world of college football. North Carolina has fired head coach Mack Brown. That's the latest from our Matt Zenitz. The news comes less than a week after Brown informed players and staff that he intended to return next season. Brown was in the midst of his 6th year in Chapel Hill, his second stint as the head coach of the Tar Heels. UNC is 6-5 this year and are coming off of a 20-point loss to Boston College. For more on this breaking news, we now bring in our NCAA football expert, Chip Patterson. And Chip, first is your reaction. Are you surprised to hear that Mack Brown is going to no longer be the coach of the Tar Heels?
Zach, I am surprised. Not only do we have the reporting about the message that he was sending to players, to recruits, to staff within that building, but we've got sort of the uncertain future in college athletics. We've seen a lot of schools with hot seat coaches really make a statement of support because they don't want to wade into the uncertain financial waters of the future. So North Carolina deciding that they want to take that opportunity to be in the coaching carousel with everything else that's going on in college athletics. And we're talking about revenue sharing, potential $20 million payrolls for these athletic departments. And I thought that Mack Brown, with all of his experience, would be the kind of elder statesman to guide North Carolina football through this transition. But no, this is a curveball from North Carolina, from the university, from athletic director Bubba Cunningham, to decide that this is actually the perfect time for a fresh start in a new direction. Now, what did Mack Brown do at North Carolina? He, raised the floor of this program, which had really gotten low under Larry Fedora. His winning percentage was better than Larry Fedora. He was able to raise that to a point where, yes, they reached the Orange Bowl. They played for an ACC championship. But there's no doubt that this is also a short tenure that fell short of expectations. You had NFL quarterbacks like Drake May, Sam Howell. You had hot starts, 9-0, 9-1. And yet this was a team that was crumbling down the stretch of multiple seasons when they got into November, when the money was on the table. In particular, for the now, one thing that comes to mind is the recruiting trail. Mack Brown has been losing a lot of high-profile high school recruits. They now have one of the worst-ranked classes in the 2025 cycle, according to 24/7 Sports, in the entire ACC. And recruiting out of high school kind of was one of the things that Mack Brown had done to repair North Carolina's reputation on the trail. When we started to see some of those top-ranked commits flip their decision in recent weeks, I did start to think that a change was maybe a little more likely. Mack told everybody on Monday that it was like, oh, don't worry about the high school class. We're going to be a big portal team. Well, now Mack Brown's not going to be responsible for working that portal. That will be whoever North Carolina chooses to be its next coach.
Yeah, and the way the year went for them after they lost 70-50 to James Madison and all the news that came out after that with Mack Brown. The fact that we are here now after there was the floating around maybe from misquoted, maybe not misquoted Mack Brown saying, okay, I'm not going to step down. But you look at this program and you see where they are. Do you think North Carolina has higher hopes for what they want to do in football than where they realistically are in this landscape?
They are historically a 500 program, and they should strive to be better. This is a North Carolina football program that always has to operate in the shadow of the national championship winning men's basketball program. And yet you understand that based on the way that the state of North Carolina has continued to grow, while the talent in the state of North Carolina has continued to improve, that even though you've got a lot of schools across the ACC and in that footprint from the SEC as well that are all trying to come and mine that talent, that is something that you should be able to take advantage of as the flagship university of the state. And I do think that for North Carolina, as they look into the future, they might need to look at Indiana, because Indiana was a basketball school, and yet they made an institutional decision that we are going to invest in football like we have not before. That was both in hiring Curt Cignetti and then also with the recent contract extension that they awarded Cignetti, because Indiana realized that the future in terms of being able to compete at the very, very top as a school, as an athletic department, requires a healthy football program. And now North Carolina, which obviously has had much more success recently in men's basketball than Indiana, but culturally has some of that same decision making. Now North Carolina, those big money boosters, the fundraising, the everything that happens around the periphery of the program, that needs to be looking at the football program and looking at this as a chance to start fresh. Because when Larry Fedora was out and Mack Brown was brought in, the idea was to repair the vibes, to make people feel good again. And Mack Brown did that with consistent bowl seasons, with being able to not have those 3-win, 2-win seasons that they saw under Larry Fedora. But he was not able to take talented groups with elite quarterbacks and get them to the point where they were winning championships at the conference level, competing for championships even beyond that. And I think that'll be the real challenge that North Carolina is going to have when they think about that next hire, because North Carolina is going into this hiring cycle as the best job available in the entire country. That could change in the coming weeks. But as we sit here going into Thanksgiving weekend, and every agent is working the phones and every agent is talking to their clients off the record, of course, but North Carolina, that's going to be the job that every coach is going to be pitched on. And so North Carolina could have a chance to have its most qualified set of candidates that it's had to make a football hire.
Yeah, before we kind of maybe take that next step and look ahead to what North Carolina might do in the future, I sure want to give Mack Brown his flowers, because if we assume that if he's going to coach his last game in the bowl game, this is a guy who's 73 years old that we might not see on a sideline again as a head coach. How will he be remembered and the legacy that he lives behind as a ball coach?
Zach, I was right there at his introductory press conference. He said the only places he would ever coach again were Chapel Hill or Hawaii, and that was just so that he could live in Hawaii or be out in Chapel Hill. I do believe that this is going to be it for Mack Brown. I think that the environment on Saturday against rival NC State will be one of gratitude. And I think that that's what North Carolina fans feel. You know, you and I were discussing before we got started here, are people happy? Are people sad? And I think that most North Carolina fans are thankful for what he's done, because he took North Carolina in his first stint to places North Carolina had never been before. Top 5, top 10 type rankings, competing against Florida State for some of those top spots in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And as he returned, he was able to repair something that had really been fundamentally broken, both in terms of the results on the field and the relationship that North Carolina football had with its fans and of the people of the state of North Carolina. So the flowers are there. I mean, he is one of the winningest coaches that North Carolina's had. He is a Hall of Famer. He is a national championship winner at Texas. And I do think that as he's going to be able to coach out the rest of this season, it is going to be not a retirement tour, not a farewell tour, because, you know, there is some disappointment probably from Mack Brown's side, as he himself was telling people that he wanted to come back for 2025. But I expect that North Carolina fans will show up in Kenan Stadium and they will shower Mack Brown with gratitude for what he has done, not just in this recent run, but with the first time, and being able to let North Carolina football fans feel what it's like, even just a little bit, to flirt with that real national relevance.
Yeah, that 2005 national championship that he won as the head coach at Texas really feels like the heyday of college football for those of us of a specific age. Those Longhorn teams that he had, and he had so much success. Just how good was he back then with Texas?
One thing that Mack Brown did very well, both at Texas, especially at Texas, but also at North Carolina, is he understood people. He is a master communicator. He is someone who understands how to work with people, how to help them get better, and how to bring out the best of them. The way that he goes about the recruiting process and getting to know the families, like, that's how that Texas program got loaded up with so much talent so that they could make a run. We remember Vince Young and his heroics against USC, but that Longhorns team was absolutely loaded. And the way that they were winning at the highest levels for about a 6, 7, 8-year run was because of talent-laden rosters where Mack Brown had done great work of using his personal communication skills to be able to build relationships that would go on to help them out on the field. To be able to understand the politicking that it requires to work with the high school coaches, to understand which family member you want to make sure you get in good with. He is always someone who is going to wear his heart on his sleeve. He's not going to play too many games, though he is the master of a good PR spin. But I do think that Mack Brown ultimately will be remembered for the humanity that he brought to college football, and sort of the honesty that he had in terms of the way that he let his personal character show in everything he did.
Yeah, I remember all the time I spent in Charlotte working there when North Carolina would come through, and just kind of being around Mack Brown then, and he certainly has a way to gravitate and take over a room for sure. Chip Patterson, thank you so much for the time joining us, as he has now been fired. Mack Brown is the head coach of North Carolina. But of course, 24/7 Sports, and we mentioned recruiting when we were talking about North Carolina. They have a ways to go right now. Currently just a 78th overall ranked class for 2025. And you can find those recruiting rankings by checking out 24/7 and getting that transfer portal news as well. But the breaking news coming from college football: North Carolina has fired head coach Mack Brown. That's the latest from our Matt Zenitz. The news coming less than a week after Brown informed players and staff that he intended to return next season. Brown was in the midst of his 6th year in Chapel Hill, his 2nd stint as the head coach of the Tar Heels. UNC is 6-5 this year and are coming off of a 20-point loss to Boston College. We mentioned Matt Zenitz reporting, and now we bring him in to continue this conversation with Mack Brown being fired. And Matt, how did we get here to this point?
So this is a decision that North Carolina ended up having to make for Mack Brown. So that there had been a lot of speculation about North Carolina potentially opening throughout the course of the season, with Mack in that scenario stepping away and retiring. But for the better part of the last couple of months, Mack behind the scenes had verbalized to recruits, to staff, to players in North Carolina that he planned to continue on as the head coach in North Carolina beyond this season. And that's something that had continued into this week, to the point that during his press conference yesterday, he had shared with local reporters that his plan was to return. And unfortunately for Mack, North Carolina was coming off of a blowout loss, disappointing loss to Boston College this past weekend. And with him continuing to be intent on returning next year, North Carolina administration ended up deciding that they had to step in and make a change, and inform Mack this morning that they're going to be going in a different direction and moving on from him as head coach.
Yeah, this is a North Carolina team that lost 70-50 earlier this year to James Madison, and there was a lot of talk after that. It seems like the defense has always been one of the issues for Mack Brown's teams there in Carolina. But you looked at it and you mentioned how he talked to recruits. Recruiting had not been that good for them. The 2nd worst recruiting class in the ACC and 78th overall, according to 24/7 Sports. How much of that aspect of recruiting do you think led to this? Because we had seen Carolina have some success under Mack Brown.
So really the uncertainty about Mack's status and where things stood with him moving forward factored into that, and made it very challenging for the staff to be able to recruit, just with recruits, player families, knowing that there was probably a decent chance that if you committed to North Carolina, that you were going to have a different head coach and a head coaching change before the end of your career there. But the bigger part of this in terms of North Carolina administration is just some of the continued struggles throughout the course of this year. And even though North Carolina went on a 3-game winning streak recently, that loss on Saturday was bad. It was embarrassing. That was a game that North Carolina felt like they should win, and it ended up being a lopsided victory for Boston College, and that put things over the top for administration once again at North Carolina, that to them, they felt like it was necessary to move forward with somebody other than Mack Brown.
We've seen maybe schools across the country be a little hesitant potentially to fire head coaches just due to the way that the schedule is setting up now with the playoffs and the transfer portal opening and early signing day. How fast do you think Carolina might want to move to get in someone to be their head coach with just the schedule and the calendar in mind?
Obviously, as fast as possible. We'll see what ends up being realistic with that. But yeah, you have the transfer portal opening in the near future, with them moving on from Mack. There's a 30-day window that opens for North Carolina players to enter the portal immediately. And there are players on that roster that I'm sure North Carolina does not want to lose. So ideally, you'll have as short of a turnaround time as possible between firing Mack and bringing a new head coach in. But the interesting part with this is, to this point, this had been an extremely quiet cycle in terms of Power 4 openings, and it was unclear prior to today just what even was going to open at the Power 4 level, let alone if there was going to be anything anywhere near the level of a North Carolina. So this becomes opening number 14 in terms of FBS head coaching jobs, but just the first at the Power 4 level, and right away it becomes a job that's going to be highly, highly coveted around the country.
So then, with that in mind, do you think, is there a dream name out there that if you're running the show there at UNC of who they might target and want to be able to hire?
Too early to tell, but some of the early names that would make sense would be a combination of the John Sumralls of the world, Jamie Chadwell, guys along those lines, although this is still, just to be clear, extremely early in the process, and that there's going to be a lot of interest in this job. And this, most likely, barring something shocking and unforeseen, is going to end up being the most attractive job, the biggest job that opens this cycle.
Matt Zenitz, we are in the very beginning of all of this news with Mack Brown being fired, and we certainly will have a lot to monitor moving forward to see what direction the Tar Heels move after this. Thank you so much.